Hello, my name's Kathy Bissell. Welcome to the Golf Show 2.0. This week, we're privileged to have two members of the Golf Heritage Society with us to discuss all those collectibles that you can find in golf. This has been kind of a niche business, and people kind of collect on the sly, and it's kind of quiet, and no one talks about it very much, but we thought we would. Gary, you want to start with the first question, get our guys going?
Yeah, well, our guests are George Petro and Bill Robertson. And we want to talk now because the Ryder Cup's coming up and there's all kinds of Ryder Cup memorabilia out there in the world. And if you think you've got something really valuable you would like to move or inspect or look for, you should definitely consider not only joining the Golf Heritage Society, but their annual convention is coming up October 14 to 17 in Nashville. In fact, Bill is in front of the poster for it, and he's got flyers. And I think I'm going to go to Charlie Weaver to block. Anybody remembers Hollywood Squares? So, just guys, why don't you just tell us how much Ryder Cup memorabilia is there in the world, and how does it compare with, say, U.S. Open or Masters? Is Ryder Cup stuff more rare or more valuable, or how does it stack up to the other items in golf in general? I know it's a big category.
Well, let me go there. To be honest, Masters is huge. Masters collecting tickets, badges, those kind of things. Now there's gnomes and things like that. The
Can you believe that?
No.
They're like gnomes can be like $6,000 for a 10-year-old gnome, but that leaves Ryder Cup is high on the list. But there's opportunities at some pretty good bargains still if you wanted to go through and start collecting programs from 27 programs and menus from 27 till the present tickets. They're really it's a relative bargain. So I think there's opportunities for people. Still, if you go back to the earliest programs, for instance, they're pretty pricey. But once you get into the 30s, the price drops down. And for the hardcore guys, and girls, you wait for that rarest of the rare to come up and complete your collection. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So,
Bill, I know George has some stuff from the Ryder Cup. Do you personally own any Ryder Cup memorabilia?
I guess I do, because it always starts with one item and then it turns into a few more. I'd consider personally the top of the line and most visual thing is actually, as you sort of guessed. Here's a Ryder Cup trophy.
Arrest that man! He's stolen the cup.
We don't want to go there because I've gotten a few items over the years that
Yes.
gotten funny ways. But I'll tell you, there are probably every 2 years about 20 of these are made since I don't know when the beginning of it all was, but those go to winners, team member winners, and the captain, and likely co-captains. And then one or two go to officials, like the president of the PGA, because obviously the Ryder Cup is sponsored by the PGAs, not the USGA, the PGAs. So there's only been a couple over the years, players' trophies, because they don't want to give them up. And Sam Snead had a captain's trophy that was sold many years ago for about $200,000. So that's really high end. But you can do trophies like this, which were given out, and sometimes they come from those dignitaries. And that's the easiest place to get them for a reasonable place. This one is, I'll be brief on this one. This one is very unusual because in 1995, they decided to honor all of the past living captains with a trophy and a dinner to thank them all and to strategize for upcoming Ryder Cups. And they held it in Dallas, Texas, because they wanted Ben Hogan to come, but he was too ill to come, didn't come anyway. But anyway, the president of the PGA was there, and of those handful, there were 15 members at the meeting, plus one or two officials. This came from one of those officials. So this one's different. It's signed by all of the facsimile signatures of all of the winners. So you can have trophies like this from 10 to 20 grand. Not that we have to go into prices, but they can go off the map depending on whether they're captains, ex-captain's trophy.
If Sam Snead would have known he could sell that thing for $200,000 back in the day, Sam was a guy who liked money. He would have done that in a second.
He would have, after he passed his 3 Masters trophies. He was allowed 3, and when they came out with the clubhouse trophy, they allowed past winners to have trophies according to how many they won. And the family sold them. Those go for about $700,000 a piece.
Wow. Yeah, Sam would sell those too.
Sam would have been okay with that.
Now,
Bill, what kind of things you got lying around, Bill? Do you have Ryder Cup related items, or are your interests elsewhere?
Yeah, my interests, Gary, are in books, and my new moniker is Brassy Bill. So I'm trying to assemble a collection of brassies that were important. I should have gotten. I have a wonderful brassy by Hagen, and I have another one by Gene Sarazen, and they're of the period where when those guys were playing, they would have used a club like that in the Ryder Cup. In fact, to that point, George and I were recently in Worcester, Maine. Mass rather. They celebrated their 100th anniversary of the U.S. Open, and coincidentally enough, they're the home of the first Ryder Cup.
Yep.
And as we were going through the players and their finish positions for the U.S. Open, I did a quick bridge through, and there's almost same players on the American team were right there, almost in the same positions a few years later. So it was really, really cool to see those players, how important they were. And there was such a small group of them. You kept seeing the same names over and over and over. So that was really.
People who are new to golf may not know what a brassy is. So why don't you explain that?
Yeah, so a brassy would be equivalent to the wood formerly known as a 2-wood. They don't make them anymore. I'm trying to think. They probably stopped making 2-woods somewhere, I would think, in the 90s. But a common set used to always be a 1, 2, a 3, and a 4, and sometimes a 5. The brassy has a little shallower face than the driver, but it was considered easier to hit. And you didn't give up as much length as you would give up on the 3-wood. So they were very popular back then because you got really good loft from them.
Plus they had a brass sole. They had a brass sole plate.
Yeah,
it did have the brass sole plate too.
So, got the brass. So that was a pretty
part of the moniker there. Absolutely, because when you use them, you were hitting them a lot of times also in the fairway. So it was quite nice to hit.
At the GHS convention, Bill, what's the most popular category of things that are there that people bring in to sell or show off? Is it clubs? Is it books? Is it something else?
That's a great question. Books used to be right there, but they've sort of waned. The books that are still highly desirable would be ones that are very old, first edition, and if signed, those are the holy grails right there. Wow. So a lot of people have thinned out their books other than the most desirable. Clubs are highly collectible. So are medals and trophies, which are still maintaining their value. But you will see a lot of clubs. You'll see some ceramics, Gary, as well. I don't know what's George got to hold up there.
Well, the reason I bring it up because it ties in amongst the two. Every time I go to a connection, one of our conventions, you never know what you're going to find. Right. So a couple of years ago, I find this, which is, you can't see it very well, but it's a gold plate, and it says Ryder Cup Golden Jubilee 1977. So I have no idea what it is, I figure it's not much. So we had this meeting in Columbus, Ohio, which is where Dayton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, which are where the Jack Nicklaus Museum is. So I go into the Jack Nicklaus Museum, and he's got all these sections: Master section, Ryder Cup section. He's got his trophies and his jackets and sweaters and things and this plate is prominently in the middle of the collection. So I go, so this was $200 at a GHS trade show. And I go, you know what? They gave these out to the American team and as a 50-year celebration. And if it's good enough for Jack, it's good enough for me. On the back, it says, donated by Mrs. Arthur Lacey of Pinehurst, North Carolina. So she had them made up. Turns out her husband played in 2 Ryder Cups in the 30s, and he was the 51 Ryder Cup captain. So she made up a few. They were given to Jack and all the other guys, and now I got one for $200. So it's kind of, so you never know what you're going to find in the GHS trade show. I mean, I've come up with hundreds of unexpected things.
George, that's got to be worth at least $220 now, don't you think?
Well, we'll talk. You and I can talk later.
No, give us what people always are interested in the prices, even if they're just guesses.
Well,
I estimate that might sell for if it was at an auction.
Now that, because I've never seen another. The only one I've ever seen is mine and Jack's. So I'm sure there are a dozen other of these in somebody's collection.
Well, there's also it's the image of the late Queen Elizabeth, and I'm going to get your husband, but I don't know that for a fact, in the middle of the plate.
Yeah, exactly. Because I sent you a photo of it.
Yeah.
I would say right now, with the collection and knowing that, it's probably $1,500.
Wow.
And it could be more. It could be more because it's so unusual. I don't want to overstate it.
Yeah, there's no way to put an exact price on these things. Yeah. It's not like it's like eBay. You see bids, but that's not what it sells for. So you don't really know.
Well, the
Gary, you talk about unusual things. How many times has the Ryder Cup been at the Country Club in Brookline, George? I know once. It maybe it's been twice.
I only know of once, 99.
So that was the one where Crenshaw had those outrageous shirts, remember, with all the deals on them. So here's something, not a Ryder Cup, but this is a book from the Country Club, 1953, and it's a count of the whole club's finances for the year. And it's funny, it talks about how the drivers cannot go into the main room anymore. They must stay in the garage by their cars. And then I think they gave them a special waiting room. And this all stems from the, horse and buggy age. So it's really weird what you'll find. So
no, I've got it. Since you mentioned Brookline, I've got the tournament program from the '99 Ryder Cup in my. It's not a collection. It's just I covered a lot of Ryder Cups, and you come home with the programs. They're too nice to throw away. You don't really start to have a collection.
That was a very exciting one. We can all.
That I think the European PGA commissioned. These are hardcover books. When they finally started winning Ryder Cups, there's 85 with Jacqueline, and I've got one from 87 here. I wouldn't think that these would be valuable necessarily because they're, again, they're hardcover. Who knows how many thousands they printed, but you don't walk around and see them. And Kathy has one of the rare items of all time, but I don't think she still has the shirt.
Oh no, I don't.
And your
I'll
famous
tell you the story though.
Okay.
In 1985, PGA West was, I think it was 85. Yes, was awarded the 1991 Ryder Cup, which, as everyone knows, was played at Kiawah Islands Resort Course, the ocean course. And there were only 12 people in the room when the announcement was made. I used to work for the company that owned the course, so I was there. But the other people who were there were about 6 PGA of America officials. There were some other people from Landmark. There were a couple of secretaries and photographers, and that was it, because nobody really cared about the Ryder Cup in 1985 except the people who were playing in it. I mean, it had absolutely no visibility. And we had shirts done with the logo in the 1991 Ryder Cup PGA West, and I handed them out to people right and left. Somebody's still got those shirts, but it was never played.
Ryder Cup PGA West.
It was moved to Kiowa Island in a weird, and it would take me too long to explain it, request for a change in the contract after the 1988 PGA at Oak Tree. So there was some wheeling and dealing kind of stuff going on, but that was one reason for the change. The other reason is everybody thought that the East Coast time zone would be better for the tournament. And I don't know if that's right or not, but it happened. So all you people with the never happened Ryder Cup shirt, look in your closet, see if you still got one, if maybe it's worth something. And I found this was from the Oakland Hills Ryder Cup. Gary, is that that's the one where Tiger and Phil played together as partners?
Yes, and we're a huge success.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Well, the dream pairing. Good job.
They gave them the media, they gave women, which they couldn't have been any more than 5 or 6 of us, but we got scarves with like a logo and a picture of the trophy someplace. Here it is. And they're silk. They're pretty scarves. Every once in a while I wear it. And I think they gave the men ties, and probably Gary has his someplace, but I don't think I've seen him in a tie very often. So it's probably not on the list.
I'm sorry. Bill, you and Gary both mentioned and talked about 1999. I have to say 1999 is my favorite, and a lot of people's favorites, certainly on this side of the pond. And so I'll show one item because we talked about collecting programs and high-end trophies. You can collect badges, and this happens to be, this is actually Justin Leonard's player's badge. These are what allow into tournaments, allow people to go in and, and not be molested and just walk in any place they want. That's basically their ticket to the tournament. So this happens to be Justin Leonard's player's badge for the 99, and it came from his caddy. So that was kind of lucky. They're a very lucky find. But like, for instance, you can get things like this. Now, Ian Woosnam played in probably, more than a half a dozen Ryder Cups, and he was the captain. So I'm guessing when he was the captain, he was allowed some guests. And so these pins with, this was given to like friends of the captain, and they can wear those in. So there's all kinds of things. Finally, on that same thing, relatively inexpensive things to collect, but you can do a whole series, is like an actual paper ticket to the Ryder Cup. So this is from '53 at Wentworth. And anyway, so that's just a little smattering of the kinds of.
George, does Justin Leonard know he's missing his badge from 1999? I think you should call him.
Could you? Can you cut out this section for me, just in case?
George, it might have fallen off when he jumped up in the air.
Well, that's exactly.
Well, he might like it back, and he might be willing to trade you something else.
It'd be hard
value, or
we collectors. Once you get it, it becomes invaluable.
I know.
It's like I can stand things I didn't buy, but once I own it, to give it up, I mean, it's like taking away your firstborn. I mean, it's very difficult.
It's the fun of collecting is the having it part.
Yeah,
exactly. You're not doing it to make money. If you did, you'd have a store.
Yeah,
and
right.
Exactly. That's not how it is.
Yes, as you say, sometimes, like, I never bought anything to sell it, so I didn't think about keeping records of what I paid, because when you sell, you've got a basis. And so I have just this year sold a Francis Ouimet trophy that he won, and that I bought 30 years ago, and it brought and I'm living on it this year. So it can happen, but those are the lucky, certain things have really gone up in value.
Did you buy a second house to house your collection of stuff?
I told my partner, I did buy a house. I told my partner I needed 2 rooms, and she said that'd be fine. And
You lied.
so that means we got to go get a 4-bedroom at least. And I go, yeah, sure, we'll do that. She had no idea that the 2 rooms are living room, dining room, and I threw in the foyer. So bedrooms are wide open.
I think we're going to see you on a future episode of Hoarders.
One thing people can collect fairly inexpensively if they go to tournaments are pins. And I always try to find a nice pin from whatever tournament it is I'm going to. This is a Ryder Cup one from, I don't know if I'll be able to see it, Medina.
Uh-oh. That was a rough one.
Maybe not. It's from something I can't see without my reading glasses. This one is a Ryder Cup pin from 1987, which was Muirfield Village. And that's the first time I attended a Ryder Cup. And I attended that because we were going to have a Ryder Cup at PGA West in 1991, which of course did not happen.
Right.
Anyway, there are several more on here from the Ryder Cup, but anybody can, if you go to a tournament, and sometimes you can buy them online, snap up a pin here or there and start a collection that way. And it's easier than trying to collect big stuff, because if you have small stuff, you can move it or display it.
Kathy, don't ever wear that jacket into Home Depot.
Why not?
Or the airport. That would be difficult.
Yeah, I usually pack it. I have worn it and then I take it off.
You know, we in the Golf Heritage Society we collect stuff, but we're not hoarders. That is the good. Most of us aren't hoarders, but almost everything ties to something historical. And so you talk about Ryder Cup, and these absolute Ryder Cup things are dear to me. But one of the most interesting things to me is this top medal. This medal is because the first Ryder Cup was 1927. In 1926, there was an event. It was called in the newspapers the Ryder Cup. Ryder was there. Abe Mitchell, who was the guy on top of the Ryder Cup, was there. Everybody was there, but it's unofficial. And one of the reasons it's unofficial is there were a lot of difficulties like who's American and who isn't American, because half the American team were like guys like, be like Tommy Armour, Jack Hutchinson, these guys who were actually born in Scotland, England, or somewhere. Yeah, so there's so many people. But anyway, so on the historical aspect, this is one of my favorite Ryder Cup things, even though it's not Ryder Cup. This medal says, gold medal says, America versus Britain, first international match, June 6, 1921. Now that's 1921. This is really the start of the idea of putting together 2 teams. And in fact, 2 teams did play, 10 against 10, virtually the same form as today, matches, then individual matches, team matches, the whole works. We got slaughtered. The Americans got slaughtered because they still had the triumvirate of Hagen, not Hagen, of Varden, Braid, and Taylor. This particular medal is the one given to J.H. Taylor. So it's kind of cool. He was the head of the British PGA. So this one is like really dear to me. They were given to the players on the team. And it really is called the first international Britain versus America match, but it wasn't Ryder Cup. Ryder took a few more years to get involved.
Where did they play that, George?
This was played. Great question. At Glen Eagles, which has a hotel resort, still do some great courses. And it's maybe 50 miles west of St. Andrews. So they had it at that location. It was in conjunction with another tournament, a big tournament, like that offered £1,000, which is huge dollars in 1921. So it was a very famous tournament. And one day, they set aside, the Americans played the Brits in conjunction with that tournament, and the medals were given out.
How interesting. I've never heard that before.
Was Francis Met on the American side or not?
No, well, he was an amateur.
He was an amateur, so I thought he would be.
Or else he certainly would have been tapped. Yeah. I mean, it's
who else did they have other than Fred Funk? Who else did they have on that team?
Maybe that's
Fred's going to call me now and be unhappy.
In 21, the players were Hagen, of course. Hagen's always been crazy, wanted these matches. Jack Hutchinson, who was a transformed Brit, but became an American citizen. And when he actually won the British Open later, he was so proud because he won it as an American. Other people, Fred McLeod, who's McLeod, I always mispronounce the name. He won early U.S. Opens. He was on, and a guy named Emmett French. And there were some lesser players who I don't know, but there were several top American players. But the Brits at home were really tough in those years. Obviously, that quickly waned, and there was a long period of American dominance.
Well, a couple of world wars will do that to you.
Yeah, they certainly will. In fact, that you brought that up, not to monopolize things, but for 39, they didn't have a tournament. The war broke out in September, and this was going to be, just shortly later. Well,
and I have my copy of a menu because it was supposed to happen here.
Okay, here we go. Because there were, as you grab that menu, there were 4 exhibition matches that they held that were quasi Ryder Cups, Americans versus Americans. Oh, beautiful.
And it was, go ahead and tell the story of that year, George.
Well, in 39 didn't happen. So Hagen was the captain, as he'd been for all of the Ryder Cups. And Gene Saracen wasn't selected for the team. So Gene Saracen, now he may be on that, but Gene Saracen goes, and now the war started, and they go, wait a second, let's play with Argentina because we want to keep them on the side of the Americans and not on the side of the opposite. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on. Well, anyway, Saracen comes up and says, he was left off the original American team. He says, I'll put together my own team. And he challenged the Hagen team. And then the next, Jones was now a professional. So Jones played in one of these and actually won his match in like whatever it was, 41-42. So they had 4 years of these additional matches, which each raised like 20 grand for Red Cross, which 20 grand in 1940 is a lot of bucks. So those were interesting years that we never talk about with Ryder Cup. And then you've got that poster that shows the players on one of those teams. That's phenomenal. I've never seen one in person.
It was supposed to be played at the Ponte Vedra Inn golf course.
Okay. Oh yeah, right.
But one reason they canceled it is U-boats were starting to pick off travelers, and they were picking off the supply ships to Britain.
You had to cancel.
And
too dangerous.
Yeah, and people were afraid of all getting killed going back and forth, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, the British team said they're not coming over. Yeah, they're not coming. Yeah.
Well, the Germans were also trying to stop Fred Funk from ever winning the Players. So that was the priority.
I don't think Fred Funk was born then.
Well, you can nitpick this thing to death, Kathy.
Well, let's take a pause here.
I think we've got a lot more Ryder Cup stuff. I think we probably need to do another show. Maybe we should.
We'll take a pause here, and then we'll
take a pause and continue. We need to tease, like, what Ryder Cup secrets will be revealed next? I don't know. Could be anything.